Almost 8 years ago, Bloxburg released to the public, and there have been many updates that over time completely changed the game. So today, we're going back and looking at updates that changed Bloxburg forever. Before we start, I'm trying to get to 200,000 subscribers by the end of 2024, so if you could help me out, I'd really appreciate it. These updates are listed from oldest to newest, so let's start with the first major update. Donating money has always been an important feature. You can donate money to a friend so they can finish their house, you can donate to new players to help them get a start, and you can even host events and donate the prize to the winners. And those are only a few of the many things you can do with donations. Donations were a way bigger deal when Bloxburg was new though, because there was technically no limit to how much you could give, which also unfortunately introduced scamming. Since you could donate all of your money within a few minutes, a lot of younger players would get tricked into giving their money to a scammer. People that got their accounts hacked had it even worse because the hacker could join Bloxburg on their account and easily give all of their money to their main account. A donation limit was added in August of 2019, and this made it where premium players could only donate $50,000 a day and normal players could only donate $10,000 a day. While this change really angered the community, it did make stealing money very difficult. And that leads us to present day, where one of the biggest uses for the donation feature is to beg for money. Advanced placing is one of the many build mode related features that changed Bloxburg forever. This game pass was added in 2017 and cost 200 Robux. It allows you to freely place objects wherever you want, which means you can have hundreds of objects in the same spot. It also allowed people to add an insane amount of detail to their builds. The game pass wasn't very important when it first released because Bloxburg building wasn't very advanced, but as time went on and people learned how to use advanced placement, the game pass became a must-have. If we didn't have advanced placement today, basic shapes would be extremely difficult to work with, and building in general would be a lot worse. 6 updates later, the large plot game pass was introduced, and for 250 Robux, your plot went from 30 by 30 to 50 by 50. Having more room meant large-scale builds, such as theme parks, mansions, and hotels, became even bigger. This was a great feature, but over the course of a few years, people got a lot better at building, and the lack of plot data was becoming a very big problem. So in August of 2020, the large plot game pass updated, and now gave double the plot data. Although it definitely made servers lag worse, it did assist in allowing players to add more detail to their builds, which I'd say significantly affected how Bloxburg developed into what it is today. Imagine if you were only able to work at one job, and if you wanted to try another job, you would have to quit, lose all of your levels, and start over. Well, if you played before September of 2017, this is how the job system actually worked. Sure, it might be more realistic, but it sucked losing hours of levels just because you wanted to try being an ice cream scooper. The ability to have multiple jobs was added in 0.5.6, and it's definitely a feature that changed how Bloxburg players make money, especially with all of the recent job changes. The first Bloxburg Christmas update set a bar for what people expect with seasonal updates. Statistically, seasonal updates, especially the Christmas updates, tend to get a lot more players than regular updates. And a lot of that is probably due to the excitement of holidays. But to keep those people playing, a good update with lots of features has to come with it. And Bloxburg has done a good job at that. This has led to very high expectations for Christmas updates. And if Bloxburg never reached those expectations, I don't think the game would have ever been as successful as it is today. The next update is actually from a Christmas update, which shows how good they were. In December of 2017, the ability to let other people build on your plot was introduced, which was a very big deal. Friends could now build together, content creators could collaborate, old players could teach new players how to build, and so much more. The ability to build together also meant that people interacted with each other more often, which resulted in more lively servers and people making friends. Imagine what Bloxburg would be like if people couldn't build together. Everyone works on their own, builds on their own, and never really communicates with people because there would be no point. Many of the best Bloxburg builds have been created by multiple people, and if that was not possible, a lot of those builds probably would have never existed. So being able to build with multiple people is definitely a feature that changed Bloxburg forever. I think it's pretty obvious why the first map revamp is in this video. In June of 2018, the Bloxburg map was expanded. It also added a very large, and to this day kind of pointless, highway. Multiple locations such as the gas station, campsite, and old observatory were introduced too. We've had this map ever since, and if the expansion never happened, so many events and experiences wouldn't have happened either. Here's a few examples. The event plot would have never existed, which meant the RB Battles events and Halloween events would have also never been there. Buildings like the observatory would have never been revamped because they wouldn't have existed. Elf hunts would have been way easier due to a smaller map, and the sledding hill would have never been a thing. And worst of all, this plot would be way too close to the parking garage, which no one likes. The Bloxburg developers did announce a new map overhaul on their YouTube channel, which will most definitely change Bloxburg forever. Basements are a pretty significant feature because of how many uses they provide. You can build custom terrain that goes below Bloxburg's ground level, you can make secret bunkers underneath your house, and you can even make hidden traps. A lot of builders that needed an extra floor would make their builds at basement level, which worked pretty well, but fortunately the next update solved that issue. In October of 2019, the Multiple Floors Game Pass went from having 3 floors to 5 floors, which was a game changer for people that made tall builds. Before these floors were added, you would have to scale down tall buildings to make them look proportional, which at the time was very difficult due to there being no basic shapes or scalable objects. So this is definitely an important feature that opened new opportunities for what is possible in a Bloxburg build. Neighborhoods are definitely one of the most important features that completely changed how Bloxburg is played. In December of 2019, the ability to rent a neighborhood was introduced, which meant you could now have a private server all to yourself and you could invite anyone you wanted. And this was amazing because you were no longer forced to join public servers with a bunch of random people. At the time, you could only have 50 people in each neighborhood, which is 25 less than what they can hold now, but that was still an insane number. Live streams with fans became even easier, and the ability to host big events was now possible. If neighborhoods never existed, tons of Bloxburg videos would have never been possible, and I strongly believe that the game would be nowhere near as successful as it currently is. In December of 2020, structurals were introduced. These structurals could be placed at any length and angle, which meant custom objects were even easier to create. And while these structurals were definitely a great addition, a new set of objects would be introduced 3 months later that would completely change how Bloxburg builds were made. Bloxburg added basic shapes and the scale tool in March of 2021. When basic shapes were first released, they were pretty difficult to use. For example, this is my first basic shape build. Most of the time, you would have to use some pretty weird strategies to get the shapes where you wanted them, which demonstrated how creative people had to be to make builds. But fortunately, a solution would get added a year later. The second half of the update was the scale tool, and while it didn't work on many objects at first, nowadays it works on pretty much everything, which is definitely changed the way Bloxburg builds are made. The transform tool was the solution to basic shapes. The first version of the tool was added in November of 2022, but it was very limited. You could only use it on pillows and bed sheets. But a month later, the Transform Plus Game Pass was introduced. And this Game Pass made it where you can use basic shapes just like you use parts in Roblox Studio. For those of you who don't know, every Roblox game is made with Roblox Studio, so that's a really big advancement for Bloxburg. Basic shapes can be moved on any axis and rotated in any way. And the best part is that you don't have to deal with using weird strategies to position the shapes. The transform tool has made detailed building and custom objects easier than ever to create. And ever since it was added, you can see a noticeable improvement in people's builds. Something we can all agree on is that Bloxburg getting sold for 100 million USD was a change that'll definitely affect the game over time. Every Bloxburg update used to be made by Coeptus, Froggy, and probably a couple other people. But now that Embracer owns the game, there is a team of developers that are paid salaries and told what to make, which could either be a really good thing or a really bad thing. Only time will tell. But from all of the updates they made so far, most of them have been pretty good. If Coeptus still owned the game, I doubt he would have revamped any buildings yet, so since the game got sold, future updates will be very different. The equal pay update is a pretty controversial one because pizza delivery's pay was decreased and every other job's pay was increased to meet in the middle. But since most people did pizza delivery as their main job, this obviously upset them. The payment system changed from the original system where it paid you every time you completed a task to now having an efficiency chart that pays you every few seconds as well as when you complete a task. And while it's definitely a unique system, I feel like it can also be pretty confusing for most people. Here's an example. Would you rather get paid every time you completed a task, or would you rather get paid every couple of seconds but you need to keep your efficiency at 100% to make the most money possible and you also get paid for completing tasks, but that price will vary depending on how long you take to complete it, but also if your efficiency starts decreasing because you're taking too long, you'll make less money. It's a lot more. But you can also now do any job you want because they all pay the same. It's a big change, and it's definitely one that'll forever affect how you make money as long as it's in the game. And the final update, which is one of the most recent updates at the time of making this video, is Bloxburg going free. A lot of stuff has and probably will happen due to this update, so let's talk about it. The game went from paid access, where you had to pay 25 Robux to play it, to now being free, where anyone can join on any account. For example, that means if you get banned on one account, you can just evade that ban by making a new account. This also significantly increases the amount of exploiters on Bloxburg, but I wouldn't worry too much about exploiters because Roblox's anti-cheat is getting better by the day. The player count had a very big boost once the game went free, but if we look at this graph, the player count has been steadily decreasing ever since, even after an update released. So hopefully the map overhaul increases the player count again, because this is definitely a bit worrying. Also, new players hopefully means more active public servers, and that can lead to people making friends. So the free update has definitely changed Bloxburg forever, and as time goes on, we'll see if it was a good or bad idea. And those were updates that changed Bloxburg forever. If you enjoyed the video, I'd appreciate it if you left a like and subscribed to help me reach my goal of 200,000 subscribers. Also, my Discord server is in the description if you want to join it. But that's it from me. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you all in the next video.